folks, and thank you for joining me, MySpace, and my buddy Arthur. We'll be covering a story about a band member from Slipknot.
Yeah, no, why are we even, is Slipknot even still relevant anymore? No, I don't think so.
Well, they just came out with a new album. Does that surprise you at all?
Actually, yes, them and their 12, they hit it off.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Never mind. I had no idea they came out with a new album this year. I did not know that.
Okay, yeah. It's just the reason why I asked you to repeat is because there was some interference with the communication, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why we're talking about Slipknot is because one of the band members, his name is Fehn. He recently talked in an interview with another publication. He talked to a music review about mosh pits. He was especially talking about in terms of Randy, the singer from Lamb of God, in the arrest in the Czech Republic in 2012. This is what Chris had to say. Yeah, that was a very sad situation, Chris responded. I'm friends with Randy, and it was an unfortunate event that happened. I know that he's not that type of person at all. He would never hurt anybody. I think especially in America, moshing has turned into a form of bullying. The big guy stands in the middle and just trucks any small kid that comes near him. They don't mosh properly anymore. It sucks because that's not what it's about. Those guys need to be kicked out. Fehn added, a popular mosh pit is a great way to be as a group and dance and just do your thing. So what do you think about that, Arthur?
I don't know what he's talking about. Like, okay, maybe I'm off, because I'm into, like, proggy type metal, so Animals as leaders, Devin Townsend, and I think there must be a different dynamic between the Slipknot fans and the rest of metal, I guess you can say. I very rarely see mosh pits turn violent. I mean, sure, there's pushing and shoving. That's like the definition of a mosh pit, But nobody sex acts like see one around them,
Right. Yeah. Okay, so can you describe prog metal to the people who probably don't understand what prog metal is?
Prog metal is the nerdiest metal. It's complicated polyrhythms and weird jazz chords. It's a hell of a time. It is.
It sounds good.
Oh, very much so.
I would just like to... I'm sorry, go on.
No, but back to the mosh pit dynamic, right? How you can really call it bullying, or for any specific reason, right? The mosh pit is the great equalizer, right? It's indiscriminate chaos. That nobody cares nor notices your race, your ethnicity, your religion, your gender, sex. It doesn't matter, right? Metal is an equal opportunity destroyer, and everyone who chooses to be in the pit will, they face a certain risk of injury, but they should not expect that injury to be, like, actively sought out after. That shouldn't happen.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you on that. In theory, like, when you get into a mosh pit, it's just going to be chaotic. So I'm not really sure what Fehn means when he says those guys need to be kicked out. I mean, how are you supposed to even enforce that? It's a mosh pit.
Right, and the only real enforcement in a mosh pit is what I like to call the pit guard, which is usually what I end up doing in a show is just, right, you stand around the pit to make sure the pit doesn't flow into the rest of the audience. That's all the enforcement you should need. Like, that pretty much separates the people who are willing to accept the risk of injury in a mosh pit from the people who just want to see the show.
Right.
And I think that's all the enforcement that's necessary.
I've been to small dive bar concerts, like metal concerts, small dive bar gigs. There was one instance where, like, this one guy got a little bit roughhousing in the sense that he was being a little more aggressive than he should have been. He was acting kind of douchey. But, I mean, that could have also been because he was drunk. He might have been drunk at the time. And I don't think he was doing it on purpose either, because based on the way he was behaving, it just seems like he was in the zone, and, like, he just didn't realize that he was getting a little out of hand. And so one of the singers from one of the death metal bands there basically had to come up to him and kind of just, like, calm him down and kind of, like, say, look, man, you need to, get your shit together.
Right.
But again, going back to what Fehn said, like, I'm not really sure like how could it be bullying? I don't know. I'm not really sure if I'm ready to say if it is or not. When a big guy stands in the middle, it kind of just sounds like the wall of death to me. Because, like sometimes there's like those people. I've seen videos of people standing in the middle of an open space and then a giant crowd of people rush towards him from left and right. But that could be me just confusing what he's trying to say there.
I don't know. I think he meant like in the middle as the center of attention. No, he's the big guy where things tend to gravitate at some point past him. He just like indiscriminately pushes people down. I still wouldn't be willing to call that bullying, though. And as for your wall of death example, the people caught in the middle are the people who don't know what the wall of death is. Yeah, they get pummeled, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean that does make sense. Because I mean, like most of those people probably just don't even realize what's going on until it's too late.
I mean, if you're that close to a Lamb of God concert, because they're the ones who still really do the Wall of Death, I mean, you probably should be a big enough fan to know what happens.
Right.
No, I've been in the Wall of Death, but I've been like near the ass end of it. I wasn't the like first row of. Oh man, fucking, they're kamikaze moshers, dude.
The percussionist also has said that he wants fans to have a good time and enjoy themselves, and he hopes to make that connection with the audience members that they also get via the band's albums. He adds to me personally that when I was a kid, personally, I was that kid. I know what they're going through. I know what it means to them. So I tried to give as much love as possible. I tried to look them in the eye, which isn't always possible with all the headbanging, but I try. I know that kid because I was that kid. I completely appreciate everything about it. So I guess he's trying to say that he was one of those people who got pushed around. That's my interpretation of what he means by that.
I don't know. That's, or I guess he was the kid in the audience who was trying to make the connection with the performer.
Right, yeah.
I guess that's actually a wonderful thing to do. I band in high school, no big shows, but a few gigs here and there. We loved it when people moshed. That's the ultimate appreciation. They find it heavy enough. If they find it good enough that they can mosh to it, that's a good thing. That's the connection, right? That's what I think most artists like to see. You are a house dance techno DJ person. If people aren't dancing to your shit, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I feel as if that's the same in the metal community. Like, if they're not moshing, you did not do it right.
Right, yeah. That's like the standard.
Right.
Yeah. Final thoughts, really. Like, can you say that, like, in America, because like when Chris is talking about here, he's mainly referring to America. Like he even mentions that he's like in particular in America. I'll quote it again. I think especially in America, moshing has turned into a form of bullying. The big guy stands in the middle and just trucks any smaller kid that comes near him. And he says they don't mosh properly anymore. Do you think there's even a way to properly mosh? I mean, I guess the way I can think of it is like don't punch people, but other than that, like. Or don't kick and punch and do karate in the fucking pit, because that's just bullshit. But other than that, I mean, like if you're slamming into people, or if you're like kind of like or like what I'm talking about, right, Arthur?
Yeah, no, I understand, right? The proper mosh is sort of this dynamic, crazy clusterfuck of people. But, the moment someone gets knocked over, everybody stops around them, picks them up, makes sure they're all right, and then, the chaos continues. I think that's maybe what he meant, this sort of more general sense of camaraderie, and more or less I have to agree with him. I guess there's less of that nowadays, even in my shows, because I know Slipknot has slightly more aggressive shows than I might have in power metal and prog metal, but I don't know. I guess there might be a decline in the expected unwritten rules of a mosh.
It could be that could be true. I mean, I can't verify that, but like that's always a possibility. I can only speak for my personal self. When I went to a small gig at a dive bar, there would be times where people would end up on the floor, and me and others would actually try and help that person up. So those people knew the unwritten rules, in terms of trying to be more proper in terms of moshing. And again, I just think unless I see it like personally from my own personal experience, it's kind of hard for me to understand what he means by bullying, I guess, because like I'm not saying it's not impossible. I mean, there's probably some people who are just being douchebags, but it could also be that some of the people who do this are just doing it unintentional and they're out of the zone, and they just need someone to just knock them over the head, and be like, hey, lighten up. You need to get back in the zone, because like I said with this dive bar gig, there was this one dude who was just acting so fucking aggressive and just like kicking and punching and just going nuts. And like at one point he even got on like the stage. It was a very small stage, but like he got on at one point, so it's like he was getting a little bit out of control.
Yeah, don't ever get on the stage. That's my shout out to all the metalheads listening. Don't ever try to get on the stage. But no, I think you're right. I think bullying is not the right word for it, because it seems to imply intent. You have to have an intent to bully. I think it might just be mindless chaos. Like, he has no clue.
I would like to think that's what it is, but there could also be isolated incidences where maybe bullying is a factor. But I can't prove that.
It might be. It might very well be. I don't know.
So do you think Chris has some kind of a point here?
I think he might, especially when he mentions how the dynamic of a mosh pit is changing, but I don't think it's the big guy versus, isolated small guys around the pit. I think it's just, I think he's just being mindless, and he has no idea what's going on around him at all. Right.
That's all we got then. So, yes, no, maybe, somewhat, yes. What do you say, Arthur?
I don't think he has too much of a point that's relevant right now.
Maybe he has somewhat of a point, but not like too fully of a point. I think if it was like a bigger issue, I think more people would be recognizing it.
That, and if he would have picked a word that's more descriptive than bullying,
Yeah. So I will whenever something like this happens again, I'll definitely look into reading and see, who's the one talking about it, who's saying it, and like what their opinion is. All right, Arthur. Well, thanks a lot for being on the podcast, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, yo.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye-bye.